Thank you for joining us. And on the line with us is Chekwas Okorie, Ojo Zindibo. Chekwas Okorie, welcome to our program.
Thank you very much.
You came out with a release after the judgment of the Presidential Tribunal. You came out with a statement saying that you had seen some of the issues raised by the tribunal, and you called on Nigerians to remember that this is Nigeria, is our country, and we need to live together. Tell us, what was your impression?
Well, I thank you for the opportunity. My impression is that the judges put in a lot of energy and hard work, and they showed that they were sensitive to concern about this particular judgment. And without being persuaded, they advised themselves that it would be better for the judgment to be transmitted live by as many television and radio networks that could connect to that judgment. And that helped a lot for people who were desirous of seeing that judgment and I can tell you that one, I had read all the submissions of the parties in that case, in that petition, more than 2 weeks before the judgment date. So being a person in petition myself, and being interested in the process that took place and how things can be done to get the process better, I watched through that judgment that lasted for about 11 hours. And so they took all the issues one by one, and not at the expense of repetition. They repeated themselves several times over to make their message, to pass their message across. And what came across to me, one, having read the petitions submitted before the judgment, was that the petitioners did not really do enough to show the polling units and the collection centers where the votes they claim to have won were denied them, which if added to whatever that was credited to them, they would have been considered to have won the election. I didn't see that when I read all of those documents, and the judges emphasized that many times over. All the other things about qualification, drug cases, and 25% at Abuja are technicalities to the best of my knowledge. Election is about the votes of the people, and if you cannot prove that the people voted for you, and you think all of those technicalities will now be sufficient to, you are getting it wrong. So that is exactly what I saw, and in my statement, I am not sure that even an appeal will come with a different outcome, but I will encourage them to go for an appeal.
Okay.
The reason I'll do that is that the Supreme Court, being the final court, will be able to resolve some of the issues pending as a final court, and they could be cited as authorities in future contestations. So that is why it's important that they go to the Supreme Court, so that we'll see how Supreme Court will look at it, and see whether we'll learn anything from it finally for future contests. Because in the next few years, 3 years plus, we'll be in another round of general election.
After that judgment, the PDP and Labour Party say they disagree, and they have concluded that they are going to the Supreme Court. That is within their rights. But
Yes.
A number of Nigerians are worried that some organizations have started calling Nigerians to the streets for what they call a demonstration. What do you think about this?
The statement I made within hours of concluding that election is that they have that right to go to the Supreme Court and appeal. And they should be encouraged. In fact, I am encouraging them to do so, because the Supreme Court will be able to put a finality to some of the areas of the judgment that some people have expressed concern about. But to go and incite people to demonstrate for a judgment that is still to be concluded at the apex court is, and to me, it's a panic measure that will, and an ill wind that will blow nobody any good. And speaking to my Igbo people using this platform, I will appeal to them to be very, very circumspect in what they do. Nigeria is not going to end in this particular. That will be, as I said earlier, less than 4 years now, 3 years plus. We are in another round of election. What you have to do is put together the lessons that have been learned. Let me use this opportunity to say that Mr. Peter Obi has triggered a movement that nobody can deny him. And I feel personally proud that I am the one that gave him, God used to give him political exposure. I gave him nomination in 2003, using my position as the national chairman of the party at the time and the founder of the party. That if I had wanted somebody else, I would still have had my way based on the position I occupied at the time. And the fact that the party was new. And so the leadership of the party had powers to do whatever it wished. And we found in him the right person to fly our flag in Anambra State. I'm giving him all the support. I will let him through the election and through the courts. And I can tell you, and he knows it, that it was the polling booth results which we made sure we never lost out. That is in terms of collating them. And that we had agents in all the polling booths in Anambra State. Those were the results that enabled the tribunal to give him judgment. And here we are. And he has grown beyond that level of being a state governor. He's playing at the national level. And I can repeat it that I am exceedingly proud of his success. He's still a young person relative to me. I mean, to some people, yes, he's in his 60s now, but he's still a young man that has bright futures. I will advise him, yes, go to the Supreme Court, and whatever is the outcome, which, as I said earlier, I don't expect a different outcome, then he should begin to work hard, sustain the momentum, what he has already initiated and is doing very well, sustain it till that time. I have seen crisis in his own party. If the party crisis is overwhelming, time is still there for him to make an early move and consolidate. The issue of having structure is real. When people were saying structure means nothing, it's real. You can't joke with that, even in future elections. Now, having said that too, there are so many things that I have found quite wanting in this election we passed through. And it's not because of any particular person, but for Nigerians to be able to have their votes count and count properly, the assembly has a lot of work to do. And I pointed that out also in my statement. They have to go back, they have to revisit the electoral laws and remove all these lacunae and all these confusions, ambiguities that have landed us in this contestation that we're having now. Through electronic voting system, which I began to advocate since 2012. How many years now? I'm advocating it. And I'm glad somebody like President Jonathan has joined. The former president of Nigeria has joined in advocating for electronic voting. Once we get into electronic voting, this issue of even though you are not being able to have agents in all the corners of Nigeria will no longer matter. Nigeria will no longer need to have public holiday on election day.
Chief Okorie.
Yes, please.
We have just 1 or 2 minutes to go.
Okay.
What would be your advice to the government to manage the emotions of Nigerians? Because what is important at all times is that we are Nigerians and we are one Nigeria. What would you advise them to do at this time to manage the emotions and sentiments of Nigerians so that even if some people must go on the streets, what would be your advice to government to manage the situation?
The 8-point agenda of President Tinubu, the template for development and creation of jobs. I think those ones are in order. But beyond that, there is so much feeling of alienation. There is so much division that he inherited. The country is not united, and nothing can work in a disunited country. Just like some people from the north are already calling this government Republic of Oduduwa. Of course, I don't agree with that because there's some semblance of balance. So this process of national healing to bring everybody together to have a sense of unity, a sense of patriotism, having reason to make sacrifices for Nigeria is as much important as the economic program of the government. They should be married. The other one that I will never stop to talk about anytime I have the opportunity is that this country is not structured for development. It is structured to stagnate. It is structured for retrogression. Therefore, it needs to be restructured. And that restructuring, we expect that President Tinubu, who has been a champion of true federalism, should not shy away from doing that. The same boldness with which he said subsidy is gone. Let him use that same boldness to restructure Nigeria.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Chief Okorie.